All right, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahawashi, Bashem, Wachaha, Kwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing his truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahawashi's return. And as always, double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahawashi. And welcome to another GMS on the job, being brought to you by the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahawashi. I'm here at the plantation in the middle of work. As you can see, there's a lot of commotion going on here. But I'm right in the middle of working. But
it's like different.
I'm here at the plantation, doing working for Esau. But this lesson is going to be about how not everyone that was called into this truth was called to be a soldier of Yahawashi. I'm going to say that again. Not everyone who was called into this truth was called to be a soldier of Yahawashi. Okay, a lot of guys, when they came into this truth, they thought it was going to be peaches and cream. They thought it was going to be fun. They thought it was going to be some kind of fad, something fun to get into. Some people thought that this was going to be
I need you to test rap.
Please excuse me. That was my radio. But some people thought that this was going to be a perfect opportunity to shoot to the top. They did not have a readiness of mind to suffer. And when it comes to being a soldier in this truth, you got to have the mindset of being ready to suffer. You got to have the mindset of being ready to lose it all. You got to have the mindset of, being prepared to lose your family, your parents, your children, your even those that were, that you were close to in the world, You got to have the mindset of getting ready to lose it all, A soldier, is trained to keep his emotions in check, okay? A soldier is not trained to think emotionally, but to deal with things logically. A soldier's mind is always in a constant state of survival. You see? And a lot of guys, who came into this truth, they did not come into this truth realizing that they were called to be a soldier for Yahawashi. Which is why in the book of Timothy's, I'm not certain which one it is. I don't want to butcher it. So I'm just going to quote the scripture, but Paul told Timothy, endure hardness as a good soldier for Yahawashi. Okay? No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life. Okay? That he, just roughly paraphrasing, I can't remember the whole scripture, so I'm just going to stop right there. I'm not going to butcher it. But, You know, we are called to be soldiers of Yahawashi. You know, a soldier's mindset is not in the is not in the mindset of partying. A soldier's mindset is not in the mindset of making a name for himself. A soldier's mindset is not on the mindset of, dealing with things out of order. Okay, and a matter of fact, in the military, or when you're a part of an army, when you do things out of order, you can jeopardize the whole entire military. Okay, you could jeopardize the entire military, the entire army. You put the whole army at risk when you put the whole army at risk when you become willful. I'll say that. And a lot of guys in this truth, okay, they became willful. Okay, when they were kicked out of a camp, or when they decided to leave a camp, they decided to go and do their own thing, because, they didn't see this truth as something beneficial to them. So they left the camp, or they got kicked out the camp, and then they added their own spin to it, and usually there's a term for a soldier who flees the battle in the middle of war. I can't think of the name right now, but there's a term for a soldier who either becomes a turncoat. He basically turns against his military, or he flees his military, or he might flee the military because he's afraid, he's scared, he don't want to die. He didn't count the cost. Maybe he was going through emotions and he wanted to see his family again. He wanted to see his wife, his children, a name for a soldier like that. Okay, I believe he is called he's considered a dishonor. Okay, and back in the ancient world, anybody who was on the battlefield, who fled the war, he left his comrades behind. He was considered a dishonored. Okay, he was looked down upon. He was shamed. Nobody respected him. Not even the civilians. Okay, he was not honored amongst civilians. Okay, men did not want to give their wives to them. Not slip of the tongue, not of the heart. Men did not want to give their daughters to these type of soldiers. I'm talking about the soldiers who fled the battlefield, who ran from the enemy, who left their comrades behind to die. These type of men were considered dishonor. Okay, they were considered a dishonor. Okay, they were shamed. They were publicly shamed. They were looked down upon. Okay, no man wanted to give their daughters unto them. And basically they had to live the rest of their lives, knowing that they fled the battlefield for their own reasons. They left the mission, and in some cases, men who fled the battlefield, who returned back to the city, they were asked, where is your comrades at? Where are the rest of the troops at? When he said, when the soldier would profess to the city, the village, the country, whatever, that he fled and left the comrades behind, da 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 da, or such and such, in some cases that dude was put to death. Okay, he was put to death. Okay, he was publicly executed for running from the battlefield. And this is what's going to happen to a lot of the guys who came into this truth. You was once a soldier of Yahawashi, but you became a traitor. Paul spoke about traitors. I believe that 2 Timothy's the 3rd chapter. In the latter days, perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of themselves, traitors, heady, high-minded, covetous, boasters, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, So these type of guys who once had their hand on the plow, but then they turned their back on Yahawashi because they got tired of the persecution. They got tired of getting rebuked. Their pride got hurt whenever they got rebuked in the spirit. Hey, when Yahawashi returns, these guys are not going to receive a favorable judgment. And a matter of fact, Yahawashi is going to put them to death. Okay? Yahawashi is going to put them to death because they fled the battlefields. They became traitors. A lot of these guys, who was once in the truth, when they fell out the truth, they basically went to Esau's side. Oh, Alazar, okay? Or Gorilla Hebrew, okay? He not only did he take his hand off the plow, but now he's giving credit. He's giving credit to Vocab Malone, saying, I've always recognized Vocab Malone and blah 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 and blah 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 blah, and, So this dude basically sided with the enemy, which makes him what? That would make him a traitor. So when Yahawashi returns, right? If Gorilla Hebrew is even still alive in that day, okay, he's going to be looked at as a traitor who sided with the enemy. And on the battlefield, anybody who was a part of the military, who became a turncoat, they betrayed their comrades and sided with the enemy. Okay. When the time came for them to be judged, okay, they was usually slain by their own comrades on the battlefield for siding with the enemy. Once you side with the enemy, you become an enemy to that nation. Even though you're an Israelite, if you side with the enemy, you become an enemy of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi. And we Israelites, we have many enemies. Okay, which when you read the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter, it gives you a list of all our enemies, which starts with the top enemy, who is Edom, which will be the self-proclaimed white man. Okay, that is the top enemy on the planet right now. Okay. Do this, and there were plenty of guys who once came into this truth, they was on fire for serving Yahawashi, but then, they did not see this truth as something that profited them, they got offended for whatever reason, you know. They got offended, so they became traitors. Some of them fled the battlefield because you know, for those who fall out the truth, but they don't side with the enemy, but they go back into the world, you're not necessarily considered a traitor, but you're still considered as somebody who fled the battlefield. So you're not going to be honored, okay? And again, back in the ancient world, when you know, back in the ancient world, when somebody would flee the battlefield, okay?
There's no tag on these pants.
When somebody would flee the battlefield, okay?
Can you look it up?
When, excuse me, the radio. When they fled the battlefield, okay, they when they returned back to their village, you know, the one who fled the battlefield and left their comrades behind, again, they were looked down upon, okay? They were looked down upon, they were despised, okay? Nobody wanted that person around because he fled the battlefield and left his comrades behind to die, you know? He was shamed. He was publicly shamed. Everybody knew about him, you know? No man wanted to give their daughters to this man. No, nobody wanted this guy around them, you know? People hated people like that, you know? It don't matter how harsh it may look on the battlefield, man.
What size was it again?
PM.
Okay, no matter how harsh it may look on the battlefield, man, you're supposed to always stay next to your allies, no matter what. Okay? You know, and here it is, you know, it's getting hot on the battlefield, and you got a lot of people getting weird, you know, popping up, changing the doctrine. Oh, and anybody who changed the doctrine, you know, they're considered traitors too, man. Okay, I don't care what anybody say. Anybody who come changing the doctrine of the Holy Scriptures, you're a traitor of the Messiah. You're a traitor. You are a traitor to Yahawashi, man. And when Yahawashi come back, if you're still around, He's going to command his angels to put you to death because you did not stand stiffly for the name of the Lord.
It was oh, that's the boxing ring, but that's not that. That's the kind of box though. Then it could be worse.
Okay, so there's a lot of guys out there who was once in this thing. They're in for a rude awakening. Okay, they're in for a rude awakening. You know? Oh yeah. And there's also Matthew 7, okay? Is that Matthew 7 where Yahawashi said, many shall say unto me, Lord, Lord, you know, have we not prophesied in thy name and have done many wonderful works and have cast out devils? But what is Yahawashi going to say to them same traitors or them same guys who fled the battlefield? Depart from me, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. Because one of the most common things that guys do when they fall out the truth, they return right back to being wicked, you know. They go right back to the wicked shit they used to do when they was in the world. That Yahawashi condemned people for. They go back to those wicked practices. Okay? And ultimately, when Yahawashi return, you know, you're gonna see these same traitors. And you know, as I said before, you know, there was a lot of traitors, you know, back in the ancient world, Some of them did survive. Some of them fled back to the village and made it. But guess what? They were also put to death. They were executed publicly for fleeing the battlefield. So, you know, your survival was not always a guarantee just because you fled the battlefield and made it back to your city or your village. And sometimes you was put to death by the townsfolk, or sometimes you was executed publicly. Okay? Or if you weren't executed publicly, you were kept alive. Okay? You know, so it's going to be something much similar when Yahawashi returns. You know,
Yeah, now that you know what it is. That's
a lot of them guys who fled the battlefield, or a lot of them guys who became traitors, they're going to get put to death when Yahawashi returns. If they're not judged during Jacob's trouble, that is. You know. And you know, a lot of these guys who come into the truth, they don't understand the concept of what it means to be a soldier for Yahawashi. You know, a soldier is not someone who gives up easily. You know, a soldier's mindset is not in the mindset of looking for constant comfort, confetti, constant catering. No, soldier's mindset is not always a soldier's mindset is not, you know, always in the state of, you know, looking for pleasures, you know, the pleasures of the world. A soldier's mindset is always in a mindset of suffering. Okay. And you know, as Apostle Gabar always say, you know, we were called into this truth to suffer. We were called into this truth to suffer while working out our salvation with fear and trembling, okay? And a matter of fact, we were not brought over here to America to have a good time. We were brought over here to America on slave ships to serve out our punishment for our sins and our rebellion against our Heavenly Father, okay? So when the Lord bring you into this truth, man, the Lord brought you into this truth to suffer. And when you're a soldier, you know, another thing about soldiers is that soldiers spend most of their time alone. You know, they're not around their family. They're not around their sons, their daughters, their brothers, their cousins, their loved ones. No, a soldier's mindset is on victory, achieving victory for their nation. Now, if he flee the battlefield, where's the victory at? There ain't no victory. You've been defeated. When you flee the battlefield, you've been defeated. Okay? You know?
You know spices. Are you using like an old lady shoe?
Are those what?
Do you like an old lady shoe?
O and Q?
Old lady shoe.
What, those? No, those aren't old lady shoes. No. But
G-H-A.
Yeah, or Y-A, or Y-O.
But you know, please excuse me for that. You know, again, I'm on the job. But these are 10. But again, you know, a soldier is trained to be made hard, you know. Now, just like everybody who joins the army or everybody who joins the military, okay, just like everybody who joins the army or who joins the military, no, excuse me, just like everybody who joins the military or who joins the army, okay, you are trained mentally and physically. You know, when you join the military, you are trained to be hard. You are trained to control your emotions, which really, a person who can control their emotions, that's a truly hard person. That's a really tough individual. A person who can control their emotions, that is a tough individual. Okay. So soldiers are trained to control their emotions, you know. They're trained not to break easily. So, okay, soldiers are put through rigorous, harsh trainings, okay? Now, I remember there were rumors. Now, let me see. Okay, there were rumors that came out about America, how America used to train their soldiers. And I believe America used to put their soldiers through training, through the type of training that America would put their soldiers through. It could potentially kill them, you know. So back in the ancient world, you know, when when soldiers would train, they were put through rigorous, harsh training. Okay, and the type of training they were put through, the training was designed to break them. Okay, the training was designed to break them down mentally and physically. And if you're a true man, you would want to go through the training, that you would want to go through a type of training that would break you down mentally and spiritually, because you don't want to be a weak soldier on the battlefield. Okay. No, true men know that join the military. They would want to go through training that could break them mentally and spiritually. Because if you're being broken down mentally and spiritually, you're also being built up again. You're being rebuilt. You're being reformed to be able to serve as a proper or even possibly a greater soldier in the military. Okay? So, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, who came into the truth, they could not handle Yahawashi's harsh training, you know. Yahawashi's harsh training is designed to prepare his elect men, again, his elect men, for what? For Jacob's trouble, you know. So if you're not being trained mentally or, you know, spiritually for Jacob's trouble, right, then how do you expect to get through it? Because Jacob's trouble is not going to be some walk in the park, man. Okay, the way things are about to turn out in Jacob's trouble, we're about to see some horrific, gruesome, disgusting, grotesque, out of this world type of shit, man. We're talking about people being dismembered completely, okay? Fucking blood all on the walls. You might walk in somebody's home looking for food. The whole house might reek of death. It might smell like shit in there. It might smell like spit. You know, you might see somebody's corpse hanging from a wall. You know, somebody who hung themselves off themselves. You know, people who committed suicide. Yeah, it's gonna get real bad. It's gonna get real bad in these last days. And if you're not prepared mentally or spiritually, you're gonna crack. And you know, I remember Apostle Kabarbo always going to that word endure, okay? The word endure means to make hard. And what is the Lord making you hard for? What is he making? What is he increasing your endurance for? Jacob's trouble.
Is there another shoe to go with this?
Oh yeah, we're currently in the middle of one moment. Salak, man. Yeah, I had to do something for a customer. But you know, when you're called to be a soldier in this thing, man, you know, Yahawashi is you know, he's training you up, man. You know, he's training you up for Jacob's trouble, man. You know, so you don't want to be somebody who's, you know, weak or, you know, feeble-minded. You know, especially not in this truth, man. You know, you don't want to have a weak mind, especially what's coming, because what's coming, it's not going to be a pretty sight, you know. Excuse me, it's going to be a horrible sight, really, man. A lot of horrible things. I mean, children is going to be judged, the babies, old people. Okay. You know, everybody, man, it's going to be a horrible day. And as a matter of fact, in the book of Daniel, the 12th chapter, it tells you that it's going to be like it's going to be a time unlike any before, you know. Come on, man, a 13. What kind of woman wears a size 13? I mean, like, if I ever saw a woman wearing some size 13 shoes, I'm gonna have to question if she's even a woman. I know men wear a size 13. I mean, that a woman wearing a size 13 in shoes, that bitch got some big ass feet. I don't care what nobody say. I mean, that might be a transformer or something. But six one's a 10. You know, we're called to be soldiers in this truth, you know. And a soldier's mindset is not on pleasure. It's not on, you know, it's not on having fun, entertainment. A soldier's mindset is not on, you know, I mean, naturally you're gonna think about your family, but his mindset is not on, you know, protecting his family, blah blah blah, you know. His mindset is not on that. A soldier's mindset is on the battlefield, the war, you know, what's in front of him. That's what a soldier's mindset is on. And a lot of guys who came into this truth, they did not have the mindset of, being focused on what's in front of them. They didn't have the mindset on the greater prize, which is achieving victory, the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Their mindsets were not on that. Their mindset was on vanity, worldly things, earthly things which they can see, touch, feel, hear, So, hey, man, not everybody was called to be a soldier of Yahawashi in this truth. With that, I'm going to say shalom, is on to the next one.